There is a presence within you that has never been confused. It has never doubted. It has never hurried, nor has it ever feared. This presence, sacred and still, existed before your name was spoken, before your story began, before your first breath touched the air. And this presence, my friend, is the voice of the divine whispering through you, not from afar, but from within. You are not adrift in a meaningless universe. You are not a product of chance, nor a mistake to be corrected. You are not here to hustle for worthiness, to chase approval, or to endlessly rearrange the outer world in hopes that your inner ache might finally be silenced. You are here for something far deeper. You are here to awaken to the truth that there is a plan already unfolding through you, not written in the stars, but etched in your very soul. The divine plan is not a distant prophecy waiting in the clouds. It is the breath you're taking right now. It is the moment your heart broke and the moment it healed. It is the tear that fell and the courage that rose. It is the gentle nudge that something more is possible and the ancient knowing that something more is already here. You see, the ego believes it must build its destiny with effort and will. It strives, it performs, it clings to outcomes like a drowning man to driftwood. But the soul does not strive, it aligns. It aligns with what is eternal, what is formless, what cannot be seen but is always present. When you begin to live in alignment, life stops being a battle and becomes a surrender. Not a surrender to defeat, but a surrender to flow. A surrender to the intelligence that orchestrates the blooming of flowers and the migration of stars. That same intelligence lives in you. There is a divine choreography to your life. And every step, even the ones that felt like stumbles, were part of the dance. Every closed door, every heartbreak, every unanswered prayer was not a mistake, it was a redirection. A sacred rerouting towards something your mind could not yet comprehend. For the mind sees only fragments, but the soul sees the whole. And the soul knows that what looks like loss is often the space where something greater is about to enter. When you let go of forcing, of fixing, of constantly trying to manipulate life into your version of success, something miraculous happens. You begin to trust, you begin to rest. And in that rest, you begin to receive not just what you want, but what you were born for. This is not passive. This is not about giving up. This is about stepping into your true power, not the power of control, but the power of connection. The connection to the source that knows your path, even when you don't. Have you ever stood before the ocean and felt its pull without understanding its depths? Have you ever watched a leaf fall with perfect timing, landing gently on the surface of a still pond? That is how life unfolds when you align with the divine. Not with chaos, but with grace. Not with struggle, but with trust. Not with ego, but with soul. And yet, we resist, we grasp. We question, why is this happening to me? But the deeper question, the transformative question is, why is this happening for me? What if every delay was protection? What if every loss was a hidden mercy? What if every detour was leading you not away from your purpose, but directly into it? You are not here to force the tide. You are here to sail with it. You are not here to dominate the moment. You are here to meet it. You are not here to convince the world of your worth. You are here to remember that you are already enough, already held, already guided. The great sages have all pointed to this truth. Lao Tzu spoke of the Tao, the way that cannot be spoken, yet can be felt when we cease striving. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within you, not in some future reward, but in your presence, your now, your alignment. Rumi whispered, "What you seek is seeking you, because he knew there is no distance between the desire of your soul and the source of your becoming. So stop running. Stop trying to outrun your pain or fast-track your joy. Sit, breathe, feel, let the stillness rise. Let it remind you that you are not the storm, you are the sky it moves through. You are not the noise, you are the silence that holds it. You are not separate from the plan, you are the plan, unfolding perfectly, even when it feels like falling apart." This is the way of the divine, not linear, not logical, but always loving, always guiding, always holding you in the arms of something far vaster than your mind can conceive. And as you return to this alignment, not once, but moment by moment, choice by choice, thought by thought, you will begin to feel it. Not just believe it, but know it. Deep in your bones, you are not alone. You never were. The divine never left you. It only waited for you to be still enough to to hear its whisper. And now you're listening. And now it can lead. When you release the compulsion to mold life into the shape of your desire, you begin to feel something even more powerful, life, molding you into the shape of your purpose. Not the one crafted by ambition or dictated by the voices of the world, but the one whispered to you by the divine the moment your soul agreed to arrive here. That whisper has never stopped. It has only been drowned by the noise of should and someday and not yet. But underneath it all, it waits. It waits like the sun behind the clouds, unmoving, unwavering, and wholly committed to your awakening. You do not need to push the river to make it flow. It already knows its direction, and so do you. Buried beneath every doubt is a compass that never needed calibration. It was never broken. It was only ignored. The truth is, you do not need more answers. You need deeper listening. There is a rhythm, a sacred pulse that lives in your breath, and when you align with it, the current of life begins to carry you. Not without effort, but without struggle. Not without movement, but without resistance. Because alignment doesn't remove the wind, it teaches you to sail with it. Do not confuse control with power. The ego seeks to control because it fears, but the soul surrenders because it remembers. Remembers that this life, this body, this story, it is not the totality of who you are. You are the awareness behind it all. You are the space into which the moments arise and dissolve. And in that space, there is no anxiety, no hurry, no need to manipulate the unfolding. There is only peace. Pure, silent, unshakable peace. And that peace is not found by achieving more or acquiring more or being more. It is remembered when you become less. Less busy, less noisy, less distracted. For in the quiet, everything real begins to speak. The trees speak, the wind sings, the stillness becomes symphonic, and suddenly you understand your life is not random, it is not fractured. It is not off course. It is a sacred orchestration that only reveals its beauty when viewed from within. So if you are tired, let it be holy. If you are lost, let it be sacred. If you are confused, let it be a divine invitation to not figure it out, but to be still enough to let it find you. Your confusion is not a punishment. It is the clearing of space for deeper wisdom to take root. The old maps no longer fit because your soul is drawing new ones, ones that do not take you somewhere out there, but bring you deeper in here. You are not called to make sense of the divine plan. You are called to trust it. You are not asked to understand every detour. You are asked to keep walking. For every step, whether forward or sideways or seemingly backward, is a brushstroke in a masterpiece too vast to be seen up close. But from the higher view of the soul, it is all perfect. Every ending, a hidden beginning. Every failure, a redirection. Every heartbreak, a cracked shell through which more love could enter. When you align with this knowing not as theory, but as embodiment, you begin to walk differently. You stop clenching. You stop forcing. You stop trying to bend the world to match your expectations, and instead, you allow yourself to be bent by the wisdom of grace. And grace will bend you gently. Grace will not break you. It will shape you into something more fluid, more open, more willing to be led by the unseen hand of love itself. This is not weakness. This is not surrender to fate. This is surrender to truth. The truth that your life is not a random collection of events. It is a revelation. Each moment peels back another layer. Each breath invites you to remember that the divine plan is not written in the stars. It is encoded in your being. You don't have to look for it. You only have to remove what covers it. Fear covers it. Doubt clouds it. But presence reveals it. And presence is always available. Not in some future destination where you've solved it all. Not in some ideal version of you where you've healed it all. Presence lives here in this breath, this heartbeat, this sacred now. And the more you return to now, the more the plan becomes clear. Not through sudden revelations, but through subtle alignment. A word that resonates, a pull towards something beautiful, a quiet nudge that says, yes, this way. Let yourself follow that nudge. Let yourself be moved without needing to justify it. The soul speaks in direction, not explanation. And when you honor its whispers, life begins to meet you in magical ways. Doors open, people appear, circumstances shift. Not because you demanded it, but because you surrendered to it. You align with the divine rhythm, and that rhythm, once entered, carries you farther than all your striving ever could. There is a softness here, but do not mistake it for fragility. This softness is the power that holds stars in orbit. It is the same softness that allows a river to carve mountains. It is the power of the feminine, within all things the yielding, the allowing, the receiving. And it is in your yielding that you begin to receive, not by chasing life, but by inviting it. Not by commanding the plan, but by becoming the space through which the plan can flow. You are the vessel. The current is already flowing. You need only to become clear enough, still enough, open enough for it to move through you. And when it does, you will know, not in the way the mind knows, with facts and logic, but in the way the soul knows, with a peace that cannot be shaken and a joy that needs no reason. And so you surrender not with resignation, but with reverence. You surrender not because you are weak, but because you finally realize that real strength is not in forcing life to bend to your will, but in bowing to the greater will that lives through all things. You stop trying to control the wind and instead become the sail. You stop questioning every wave and instead become the vessel that trusts the ocean, knows its depth far better than your mind ever could. And in this surrender, something sacred awakens. It is not loud. It does not arrive with fanfare. It does not need to. It emerges like morning light through an open window, gently illuminating everything that had been hidden. You begin to see the hidden grace in every delay, the quiet miracle in every mundane moment. You begin to feel deep in the marrow of your being that you are being held, not by circumstance, but by something eternal, something that has always known you, something that has never left you, even in your loneliest hour. It does not speak in sentences. It speaks in sensations, in peace where there should be fear, in a quiet confidence when everything around you seems uncertain, in an urge to keep walking even when the road disappears beneath your feet. This is the voice of alignment. And the more you trust it, the more you realize that the divine plan was never about comfort, it was about truth. It was never about achievement, it was about remembrance. It was never about the path being easy, it was about the path being yours. Because only your path could awaken you in the exact ways your soul came here to be awakened. Only your life with all its textures and contrasts could be the perfect curriculum for your becoming. And when you begin to see your life not as a problem to be solved, but as a teacher to be listened to, the struggle dissolves, the resistance softens. You begin to bless even the moments that once broke you, because now you see they broke the shell, not the soul. They shattered what was never you to reveal what always was. You see, the ego clings to what is known, even if it hurts. It would rather suffer with certainty than expand into the mystery. But the soul knows that the mystery is not the enemy. It is the womb of all creation. When you align with the divine plan, you do not run from the unknown. You walk into it with open arms, trusting that the light will meet you one step at a time, not all at once, not with a map, but with a promise that you are being led. And you are being led by dreams that do not make sense to others, by desires that come from a place you cannot name, by longings that do not fit into your timeline, but fit perfectly into your soul's unfolding. Stop dismissing those whispers. Stop calling them silly or impractical. They are the seeds of the sacred. They are the breadcrumbs left by your higher self, leading you home. And home, dear soul, is not a place. It is a state of being. It is the deep exhale of finally being aligned with who you really are, not who the world told you to be, but who the divine dreamed you to be before time began. And when you begin to live from that alignment, you stop asking, what should I do? And begin asking, what is the most authentic expression of love I can offer in this moment? Because that is what alignment is. It is living from love. Not the fleeting conditional love the ego trades in, but the eternal, unshakable love that simply is. That gives without needing. That speaks without performing. That moves without proving. This love is the essence of the divine plan. It is the thread running through every joy and every sorrow. And it is calling you not to figure it out, but to embody it, to become a living reminder that the plan is not separate from you. It is not happening to you. It is happening through you. Every choice you make in alignment with love, every moment you act from truth instead of fear, every time you say yes to what lights you up and no to what dims your soul, you are not just living the plan. You are fulfilling it. And fulfillment, true fulfillment, does not come from the applause of the world. It comes from the quiet knowing that you have honored the truth within you, that you have shown up, not as a role, not as a brand, but as a soul, that you have dared to be real in a world addicted to the artificial, that you have chosen depth over image, presence over performance, meaning over noise. You become a vessel for the divine not by becoming extraordinary, but by becoming fully, unapologetically, luminously you. And that is the secret the ego doesn't want you to know. That you were never meant to be someone else. You were meant to remember that who you are when aligned with the sacred is more than enough, not because of what you do, but because of what you allow to move through you. So let it move through you. Let grace pour through your words. Let peace flow through your actions. Let love radiate through your being without needing to control where it lands. You are not the source of the light, you are the lamp through which it shines. And the more you clear away the dust of fear and doubt, the more clearly the light will shine. You were not sent here to change the world by force. You were sent to remind it of the light by becoming it. That is alignment. That is the plan. And it is unfolding perfectly now. And so the plan continues, not as a roadmap with destinations neatly labeled, but as a divine unfolding written in the language of your soul's quiet agreement with life. It moves not in straight lines, but in sacred spirals, guiding you not forward as much as deeper. Deeper into your essence, deeper into your being, deeper into the realization that what you once feared as loss was the pruning of illusion, and what you once called failure was the holy invitation to rediscover your true nature. There comes a point, perhaps slowly, like a dawn unnoticed, until the world is bathed in gold, when you realize you no longer need to be anything other than aligned. Not successful in the eyes of others, not impressive by the standards of a restless society, but attuned to the deep inner hum that says, yes, this is true. And when you live from that space, when your actions rise from alignment rather than ambition, everything begins to change. Not because the world suddenly cooperates, but because you no longer require it to. Your peace is no longer tethered to outcomes. Your worth is no longer entangled in approval. Your joy is no longer postponed for some imagined future where everything is finally fixed. No, your joy begins to live in the now, in this breath, in this seemingly ordinary moment that becomes extraordinary the moment you bring your full presence to it. This is where the plan reveals itself most clearly, not in the mountaintop revelations, but in the still spaces between heartbeats, in the way your body softens when you stop trying to prove anything, in the way your soul exhales when you finally let yourself be enough. Alignment does not make life easier, it makes it real. It peels away the noise and reveals the truth that was always there, like sunlight waiting behind the curtain. And the truth is this: you are not here to force your way through life like a storm. You are here to become so deeply rooted in truth that your very presence is the calm after the storm. You are here to remember that when you move from alignment, you move with the current of the universe itself. And the universe does not hurry. There is no urgency in the blooming of a rose, no anxiety in the journey of a river, no panic in the rising of the Sunday. And yet we live in a culture that glorifies the grind, celebrates the sprint, praises the exhaustion that comes from being always in motion. But your soul does not thrive in speed, it thrives in stillness. It grows not through hustle, but through harmony. And harmony comes not by doing more, but by being more fully who you already are. To live aligned with the divine plan is to become an instrument through which life plays its most beautiful song. And you do not choose the notes. You do not control the tempo. You simply keep yourself in tune. You quiet the mind. You open the heart. You release the grip. And in doing so, you allow the music of the cosmos to play through you. This is what the sages meant when they spoke of surrender, not giving up, but giving into the flow of something higher. Not abandoning effort, but abandoning the illusion that you must carry it all alone. There is no greatness in spiritual pride. There is only humility, and in that humility, a greatness far beyond the ego's imagination. To walk this path is not to seek the spotlight, but to become the light. Not to demand certainty, but to embrace mystery. Not to control life, but to trust it so deeply that even the unknown becomes sacred. Even the shadows become teachers. Even the pauses become prayers. You will not always feel aligned. There will be days when doubt returns, when fear finds its way in, when the noise of the world feels louder than the whisper of your soul. But alignment is not about perfection. It is about returning again and again, like breath, like tide, like prayer. You return not because you failed, but because you remembered. You remembered the silence. You remembered the stillness. You remember that the way home is always just one breath away. And in this return, there is renewal. In this return, there is redemption. In this return, there is resurrection, not of something dead, but of something forgotten. The part of you that knew before the world told you to forget. The part of you that trusted before learned to defend. The part of you that loved without conditions, without walls, without needing to be loved in return. This part of you is not gone. It is waiting. Waiting for your yes. Waiting for your softening. Waiting for your willingness to live not as a reaction to fear, but as a response to love. This is what it means to align with the divine plan. To live as if love were your origin, your language, your destination. Because it is. And when love becomes your compass, you stop seeking validation. You stop chasing meaning. You stop begging the world to reflect back your worth. And instead you become the mirror through which the world sees its own divinity. You walk into rooms and something shifts not because of what you say, but because of who you are. You touch lives not by teaching them, but by showing them what it looks like to live without the need to be anything other than true. You become an anchor, not by standing still, but by standing rooted in truth, in presence, in soul. And the beautiful paradox is this: the more you align, the less you need, the less you grasp, the less you try to possess or persuade. Because now you are possessed by something holy. You are persuaded only by love. You are full, not in the way the world defines fullness, but in the way a tree is full of roots, full of stillness, full of quiet knowing. This is your invitation, not to change your life, but to change your relationship with it. Not to rewrite your story, but to see it through new eyes, the eyes of love, the eyes of the divine. And when you do, you will find the plan was never hidden. It was only waiting for you to see. And so, as you begin to live not from resistance, but from reverence, something astonishing happens. Life begins to respond not to your effort, but to your essence. The people who come into your orbit, the opportunities that whisper your name, the timing of events that once felt chaotic now begin to move in harmony, like stars obeying a hidden constellation. It is not that the world has changed, it is that you are now seeing it through the lens of alignment. And when your vision is clear, everything becomes a message, a gesture, a sacred mirror. That aching conversation you've been avoiding becomes a doorway to deeper truth. That season of stillness you once resented becomes the fertile soil where your soul learns to bloom without applause. That failure you feared would define you becomes the very path that frees you from the tyranny of needing to succeed at all. Because now you know success is not about accumulation, it is about authenticity. It is not measured in metrics, it is measured in moments, in the depth with which you touch the now, in the courage with which you walk your truth, in the tenderness with which you treat your own unfolding. Let go of the idea that you must rush toward anything. The divine plan has never been a race. It is not unfolding according to clocks or calendars, it is unfolding according to readiness. And readiness is not when you've checked every box. It is when you finally say yes to where you are. When you stop trying to escape the now and start sanctifying it. The now is not in your way, it is your way. It is the altar upon which the next miracle will arrive, not because you forced it, but because you prepared your presence to receive it. Do not underestimate the power of your presence. Do not undervalue the vibration you emit simply by being aligned. You may think your healing is a private affair, but it is not. Every moment you choose to live from truth instead of trauma, to speak from soul instead of defense, to love without needing it ripples, it echoes, it changes the frequency of the field around you. This is not mystical fluff, it is spiritual physics. You are energy, and your energy is your offering. So when you begin to walk through your life with quiet certainty, no longer performing, no longer pleasing, no longer proving, you become a sanctuary. A safe place for others to rest, a lighthouse for those still lost in the storm of seeking. And not because you are better, not because you have all the answers, but because you have finally become available to the presence that holds them all. And this availability is the most sacred act of service you can offer. You do not need to go out and save the world. You need only to stop abandoning yourself. Stop betraying your knowing. Stop outsourcing your joy to a future that never arrives, and instead embody the miracle that is already here, already breathing, already beating within your chest. And yes, there will still be pain, there will still be endings, there will still be moments that bring you to your knees. But now you will kneel not in despair, but in devotion. You will weep not from loss, but from the awe of knowing that even this is part of the unfolding. You will not fear the dark, because you will have touched the light within you that no shadow can extinguish. This is the holy paradox. Alignment does not shield you from life, it roots you so deeply within it that you no longer need to run. You can stay, you can breathe, you can feel. You can face each wave not as a victim, but as the ocean, not as the storm, but as the sky, not as the wound, but as the witness. And the more you witness your own becoming, the more tender you become toward the becoming of others. You no longer judge their pace. You no longer mock their fear, because now you remember your own, and in remembering you soften, you bless, you hold space. And that space becomes the very medicine this world so desperately needs. Not another doctrine, not another opinion, but presence. Pure, spacious, unguarded presence. So do not fear your sensitivity. Do not apologize for your depth. The world has enough armor. What it needs is your open heart, your unfiltered gaze, your unshaken trust in something higher than your own plans. That trust will not make you naive, it will make you invincible. Because once you know that the divine is not just around you, but within you, fear loses its grip, scarcity loses its voice, and time loses its tyranny. You begin to move differently, not as someone trying to arrive, but as someone who has already arrived, and is now simply allowing life to move through them, like wind through leaves, like light through glass, like love through a willing heart. And what greater purpose could there be than to become a living conduit for that love? What greater success than to walk through this life with your soul intact, your spirit at ease, and your heart wide open to the sacred choreography that never needed your approval, only your participation. And so you participate fully, freely, faithfully, because now, finally, you trust the plan. And in trusting the plan, you have become it. And so, as you walk ever deeper into this quiet alignment, you begin to feel the soft but seismic shift from seeking to surrender, from effort to embodiment, from striving to simply allowing yourself to be the sacred vessel through which the divine expresses its infinite love. You are no longer chasing signs, no longer bargaining with the moment, no longer measuring your worth by the weight of your results. You are at last resting in truth. And truth, when allowed its full expression, does not ask for applause, it simply radiates. It doesn't try to convince or convert. It doesn't wear robes or carry banners. It lives in the simple gestures, in the ordinary grace of being fully present. It is found in the hand laid gently on the heart during moments of stillness. It is whispered in the breath that says, I am here, even when the world feels far away. You become deeply familiar with the silence. Not the silence of absence, but the silence that is fullness beyond form. The kind of silence that holds galaxies, that listens to your soul without needing to fix it, that sits with your wounds without recoiling. This is the silence from which all creation emerges, and now you are finally at home within it. You see the plan now, not because it was revealed in some grand revelation, but because you no longer need it to be. You've come to trust that not knowing is its own form of wisdom, that the pause is just as holy as the progression, that being here fully, vulnerably, courageously is the destination you once thought was somewhere else. And so your energy shifts. It no longer says, I must become. It says, I now allow. And in that allowance, there is birth. The birth of your true life, not the life the world rewarded, but the life your soul came to live. You become unafraid to disappoint illusions. You let the false fall away without mourning. You no longer reach for masks when discomfort arises. You stay naked in your truth, and you discover it's enough. You're enough. You always were. Even the mind begins to slow its spinning. It too, weary from the labor of fear, begins to rest in the deeper intelligence of the heart. The chatter becomes a murmur. The analysis dissolves into awareness, and you begin to hear that deeper voice, the one that never shouted but always knew. It does not ask you to do more. It asks you to become less of what you are not. It does not point to the future. It anchors you into the sacredness of this eternal now. And in this now, there is no judgment. There is no race. There is no one to compete with, no audience to impress, no script to perform. There is only presence that holds all things, receives all things, honors all things, without needing to label them right or wrong. This is the return to innocence, not the ignorance of childhood, but the wisdom of the unconditioned self. The self that does not carry shame, the self that does not grasp for meaning, because it is meaning. The self that knows, I am here, I belong, I am the breath of the divine made visible. And from that knowing, life begins to pour through you, not as a task, but as a song without effort, a song that lifts others, not because you try, but because you are aligned. And in that alignment, you touch eternity. The grief no longer breaks you, it baptizes you. The fear no longer paralyzes you, it purifies you. The longing no longer consumes you, it leads you back to yourself. Because now you know the divine plan was never about fixing your life, it was about freeing your soul. It was about stripping away every falsehood until only love remained, until only presence remained, until only this moment and the sacred stillness within it was enough. And now it is. Now you no longer ask for the light, you remember that you are it. You no longer fear the dark, you honor it as the sacred contrast that reveals your glow. You no longer plead for purpose, you walk as purpose wherever your feet may go. There is a stillness here, deeper than peace. A stillness that cannot be taught, only remembered. It does not depend on your circumstances. It does not waver when the world shakes. It is the stillness of the mountain, the hush of the stars, the echo of source saying, welcome home. No need to return anywhere else. No need to become anything else. No need to seek anything more. Just breathe and be. For the plan is not coming. The plan is not delayed. The plan is not broken. The plan is you. And in this breath, this holy exhale of surrender and knowing you have aligned, not with a concept, not with a future, but with the divine itself. And now, beloved soul, you are free. There comes a time in every life when the path grows quiet, when the noise of ambition, the striving of the ego, the demands of the world begin to dissolve into silence. It is in that silence that you begin to sense faintly at first, like a whisper behind the wind, that there is something more. Not more to get, not more to become, but more to remember, something deeper, something older than time, a presence that calls not to your mind, but to your soul. And that presence speaks without sound. The universe has a bigger plan for you. You may not see it yet. You may be standing in the rubble of what you thought should have worked. You may be grieving dreams that seemed divinely inspired, but ended in confusion. You may be clinging to what's familiar simply because you cannot yet feel what's coming. And that is okay. The caterpillar cannot imagine flight. The seed cannot predict the tree. But within both lies the divine architecture of becoming not through effort, but through surrender. Not through control, but through trust. Life does not unfold according to our plans. It unfolds according to our expansion. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, is not interested in your comfort. It is devoted to your awakening. It does not conspire to make your path easy. It conspires to make your spirit grow wing. What looks like delay is often divine preparation. What feels like loss is often sacred realignment. What appears to be falling apart is often simply falling into place, but in a way the mind cannot yet comprehend. Because the mind lives in time, but your soul lives in truth. And truth is never rushed. It blooms like a lotus from the mud in stillness. So when you feel uncertain, do not rush to fill the space. Do not race to fix, to understand, to wrap it all in explanation. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is to let life remain a mystery a little longer, to allow the sacred unknown to work its quiet magic without interference. The ego resists the unknown, but the soul knows the unknown is holy ground. You are not being punished. You are being positioned. You are not being abandoned. You are being recalibrated. And every detour, every delay, every unexpected twist is not a deviation, from the path. It is the path. You are not lost. You are being rerouted, not by accident, but by intelligence. The same intelligence that orchestrates galaxies without collision is orchestrating your life with precision. You may not have chosen the pain, but the pain may be choosing you for something greater, for strength, for wisdom, for empathy, for depth. And so often, the very wound that felt like it would break you becomes the doorway through which the light enters your life. Rumi spoke of it when he said, "The wound is where the light enters you." Not because pain is noble, but because pain opens. And in that opening, the soul can speak. You do not have to pretend to be okay. You do not have to know the answers. All you have to do is stay open. Stay willing. Let the tears fall if they must. Let the old fall away if it must. Let your identity dissolve if it must. The oak does not mourn the loss of its acorn shell. It surrenders to the becoming, and so must you. The universe has a bigger plan, not one that fits into your limited expectations, but one that expands you beyond anything you could have imagined. And the only thing it asks of you is trust. Not blind belief, but deep knowing. Knowing that you are not alone. Knowing that even now, especially now, you are being guided by something vast and wise and eternal. It does not require your understanding. Only your alignment. Alignment is not something you achieve. It is something you allow. It is returning to that sacred space within where the mind quiets, the breath deepens, and the truth becomes audible again. That space is always with you, beneath the noise, beneath the fear, beneath the plans and the projections. That space is where the bigger plan lives. The ego will panic when the map disappears. The soul will rejoice because now you are being led by the compass. And the compass does not give you a 5-year plan. It gives you one step, one breath, one moment of clarity that says, this way. And when you follow it, not with fear, but with faith, you discover that life is not a straight line, it is a sacred spiral. Every loop, every return, every seeming setback brings you deeper into your essence. You do not have to know what's coming to be at peace. You only have to know who you are. And who you are is not this role you've played, not this name you answer to, not this image you've curated for acceptance. Who you are is the awareness that sees it all, the stillness behind the story, the light behind the eyes. And when you remember this not with your mind but with your being, the chaos loses its grip. Because you realize that nothing real can ever be lost, nothing eternal can ever be threatened. And the parts of your life that are crumbling, perhaps they were never real to begin with. Perhaps they were scaffolding, temporary structures built to protect the sacred space that is now ready to emerge. You are not being destroyed. You are being unveiled. You are not breaking down. You are breaking open. And what is being born from this opening is not a better version of who you were, but the truer essence of who you've always been. There is a wisdom in the waiting, a purpose in the pause, a blessing in the breakdown. But only if you are willing to see with the eyes of the soul, the eyes that know that life is never out of order. It is only out of alignment with our expectations. And it is the loosening of those expectations that makes room for miracles. You were never meant to walk a path of control. You were meant to walk a path of surrender. Not to fate, but to the higher plan, to the inner knowing, to the presence that has never once left you, even in your darkest nights, even when you doubted it most. There is a rhythm to your life, like a tide. And just because the tide is out does not mean the sea has disappeared. Trust its return. Trust the unseen. Trust the deeper intelligence that speaks not in words, but in signs, in nudges, in serendipities that are too precise to be coincidence. That is the universe whispering, I am here, and I am not finished with you yet. You may think the best has passed. You may think your chance is gone, but the universe has no clocks. It moves not on human time, but on divine timing. And divine timing is never late. It arrives when you are ready to receive, not when you are desperate to grasp. So be still, be soft, be open. This is not the end. It is the holy beginning, a new becoming. And the plan, the bigger plan is unfolding right now through your tears, through your quiet moments, through your letting go. You do not need to know how it all ends. You only need to trust the hand that is guiding you. And that hand is not outside of you. It is the same force that breathes your lungs, that beats your heart, that spins the earth while you sleep. So stop trying to figure it all out. Stop demanding clarity when you're being offered faith. Let the fog stay if it must. Let the questions remain unanswered. Let the journey be uncharted. For this is sacred ground. This is where the soul remembers it was never lost. This is where the ego bows to something far greater. And in that bowing, the plan begins to reveal itself. Not all at once, but in glimmers, in glimpses, in small miraculous moments that say, keep going. You are not alone. You are part of something infinite, and you are exactly where you need to be, because the universe has a bigger plan. And it's beautiful, and it's unfolding, and it's already begun. And so in this sacred stillness where your soul leans forward and listens, let us go deeper, not in understanding, but in trust. Let us not ask the universe to explain itself, but instead allow it to move through us like breath, through a flute, creating music we may not comprehend, but can always feel. For when you let go of the demand to comprehend, you make space for wonder. And wonder is the soul's native language. It knows how to behold what it cannot name. The human mind will tell you that certainty is safety, that plans are power, that logic is light. But the soul thrives in mystery. It dances in ambiguity. It does not fear what it cannot label, because it remembers that life itself is unlabeled. It was never meant to be caged in answers, but liberated in awareness. Let your awareness deepen now, not with effort, but with surrender. Not by pushing away discomfort, but by welcoming it in as a teacher, disguised in difficult robes. Everything that shows up in your life, everything, is part of the bigger plan, even the mess, even the missed callings, even the heartbreaks that hollowed you out. For the hollowing was not punishment. It was preparation. Life was not emptying you out to break you, but to make you spacious enough to hold the magnitude of the light that is coming. You were never meant to be filled with what the world offers. You were meant to be filled with what the soul reveals. And the soul reveals itself slowly like dawn. It does not burst forth with answers, but warms you quietly until suddenly you can see. And what you see is not a destination, but a transformation, a shift, a sacred turning away from fear and back toward wholeness. You begin to recognize that peace is not something life gives you when it's kind. It's something that rises in you when you stop resisting what is. The moment you stop struggling against the current, you find yourself carried. And the current has always known the way. So many of your battles have not been with life, but with your belief that you had to control it. With a story that said you must earn your way to safety, that you must constantly prove your worth, win approval, outperform your past. But that story was never yours. It was whispered by voices that had forgotten their own divinity and passed the forgetting along. Now you are awakening. And to awaken is not to gain something new, it is to release something false. To lay down the armor, to disarm the judgment. To unclench your grip on what was never yours to carry. And in that release, the truth reveals itself. You are already enough. Not because of what you've done, but because of who you are beneath all doing. You are not the storm. You are the sky that holds it. You are not the noise. You are the silence that witnesses it. You are not your story. You are the sacred space within which the story is written, erased, rewritten again. And this space, this inner temple, this is where the bigger plan is born, not out of calculation, but out of communion. It does not arrive through force. It emerges through receptivity. It is what happens when your doing ceases and your being is allowed to rise. There is nothing passive about being. It is the most powerful force in the universe. Mountains do not move by striving. They move because the earth itself breathes. Stars do not shine by effort. They shine because it is their nature. And your nature, too, is light. Not the kind that flickers with circumstance, but the kind that remains steady, even when the world forgets the Sunday. So let your light remain. Not because you try harder, but because you let go more completely. Let go of timelines. Let go of needing the next answer. Let go of the tension that comes from thinking your destiny depends on your performance. It never has. Your destiny is not performance-based, it is presence-based. It unfolds from alignment, not achievement. And alignment is simply this: the willingness to meet this moment as it is, to look upon whatever is arising, not with fear, but with faith, not with resistance, but with reverence. Even pain, even confusion, even the seasons of not knowing are holy, for they are the compost in which grace grows. You do not need to have it figured out. You only need to stay open to being figured into something larger than your mind can conceive. The universe is not waiting for your perfection. It is waiting for your participation. Not in the sense of striving, but in the sense of saying yes to what is. Saying yes to this breath. Saying yes to the fact that you are here, right now, alive, with a heart that still knows how to ache and still longs to love. That ache, that longing, is not weakness. It is the voice of the deeper plan. It is the compass. It is your guidance system, not malfunctioning, but recalibrating to a frequency you've long ignored. Begin to trust that frequency. The quiet nudges, the gentle hunches, the dreams that keep returning. The peace that arrives when you take one small step toward what lights you up inside. The path of the soul never shouts. It hums, and your job is not to demand it speak louder, but to grow quiet enough to hear it. Even now, it speaks. Even now, it points the way not toward certainty, but toward truth. Not toward control, but toward connection. Not toward who you think you should be, but toward who you were before you forgot how to listen. This listening, this holy listening, is the key to the bigger plan. Because the plan is not written in the stars, it is written in your being. It is not something you chase, it is something you embody. And the more you return to yourself, the more the plan reveals itself, not in lightning bolts, but in deep, sacred clarity that needs no proof to feel real. Let that clarity carry you now. Let it remind you the universe is not asking you to believe harder. It is inviting you to remember deeper, to remember who you are, to remember what you are, to remember that the unfolding of your life is not a test, but a blessing in disguise. And as this remembering takes hold, your fear becomes softer, your breath becomes fuller, your path becomes clearer, not because the way has changed, but because your eyes have. And now, the plan begins to unfold not around you, but through you, because the universe was never separate. It is you, and you are ready. And so we go on, carried now not by striving, but by surrender. Carried by something far greater than ambition, something softer than logic, something ancient and eternal that has never once forgotten who you are. It is this something, this silent, boundless presence that moves through you even now, as surely as the tide moves toward the shore. You are not drifting. You are being drawn. And the current that draws you does not ask for credentials. It asks for openness. It does not measure your worth. It presumes it. For in the eyes of the divine, you are not becoming worthy. You are already the worthy one awakening. There is a rhythm to life that cannot be rushed. Just as the moon waxes and wanes, just as the tide comes in only to return again, your journey too is governed by unseen seasons. And to demand fruit in the middle of winter is to misunderstand the wisdom of the roots. You may not yet see the bloom, but that does not mean the growth is not happening. The caterpillar does not peek out from the cocoon and question its wings. It trusts the dark. It trusts the silence. And eventually, when it is time, it flies. This is the deeper plan to lead you not just to success, but to flight. Not just to moments of happiness, but to a sustained state of inner joy that no circumstance can steal. But joy is not found by pursuing pleasure. Joy arises when you become one with what is. It is the flower of presence. It is the reward of surrender. And when you finally allow yourself to stop resisting what is, joy is what remains. Not because life is perfect, but because you've remembered that you are. You are not here to master the outer world. You are here to come home to your inner one. And the world, with all its twists and turns, all its heartbreaks and surprises, is simply the mirror that reflects the state of your connection to self. When you forget who you are, the world appears hostile. But when you remember, even the chaos becomes sacred. Even the broken pieces begin to shimmer with light. Because they are not the evidence of your failure. They are the mosaic of your awakening. You are not meant to be untouched by life. You are meant to be transformed by it. The cracks in your surface are not your shame. They are the places where light escapes. And it is through those very openings that grace slips in and begins to shape you into something more spacious, more compassionate, more deeply aligned with your soul's essence. Do not fear the breaking. Fear only the hardening. For it is better to be broken and soft than whole and shut. Your softness is not your weakness. It is your strength. The seed does not erode the cliffs with anger, but with patience. The wind does not shape the trees by force, but by persistence. And so, The plan does not come crashing into your life. It arrives slowly, gracefully, through moments of surrender so quiet you might mistake them for ordinary. But nothing is ordinary when seen through the eyes of the soul. The breath is holy. The pause is sacred. The silence is the sound of God rearranging your life. And if you can stay still enough to listen, truly listen, you will hear the invitation beneath the chaos. You will feel the hand beneath the fall. You will see, perhaps for the first time, that you are not being undone, you are being rewritten in light. Let the old story burn. Let the mask fall. Let the identity you clung to for safety dissolve like morning fog. The story that says you are behind. The story that says you must earn what is already yours. The story that says you are separate, small, incomplete. These were never your truths. They were borrowed garments, inherited beliefs, voices that echoed in the chambers of your unguarded heart until they sounded like your own. But now you are awakening. And to awaken is to hear the still, unshakable truth beneath the noise. You have never been lacking. You have never been alone. You have never been forgotten by the universe, not for a single breath. There were no wrong turns, only roads that deepened your becoming. There were no wasted years, only seasons that ripened your soul. There were no delays, only divine timing preparing your wings. And now, the wings are ready. But flight does not require certainty. It requires courage. It requires stepping into the space between knowing and trusting and saying with your whole being, I don't need to see the whole plan. I only need to know that I am held. Because you are. You always have been. And the holding is not conditional on your worth. It is rooted in your very existence. The universe does not ask, are you ready? It asks only, are you willing? Willing to be guided. Willing to be undone. Willing to be led into a life so aligned, so radiant, so rooted in love, that the person you were no longer fits inside it. This is the path of trust. Not the trust that says, everything will work out the way I want, but the deeper trust that says, however it works out, I will be held in love. That is the trust that softens your chest, calms your breath, and steadies your steps. Not because it gives you control, but because it teaches you that control was never the source of safety. Love is. Presence is. Connection is. And you are always connected. You do not need to strive for connection. You are wired to it, like a leaf to the tree, like the tide to the moon, like light to its source. The bigger plan is not about adding more to your life. It's about stripping away everything that blocks the truth of who you are. And in that stripping, in that shedding, the soul begins to breathe again. Chatipiti danoi. Then let us walk further into the sanctuary of this unfolding. Let us continue not with haste, but with reverence. As if each word is a step deeper into the heart of the divine itself, not a place to arrive, but a presence to awaken. For when you begin to sense the plan behind the pain, the orchestration behind the silence, the grace behind the disruption, you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And begin whispering, what is this revealing in me? The plan is not about reaching a pinnacle. It is about remembering your origin, not where you were born, but where your essence was breathed from. Before the world gave you a name, before the mind built its walls, before your heart knew the ache of longing, you were whole. You were luminous. You were already held in a pattern of love that cannot be seen by the eyes, but can be known by the soul. And now, this plan, this bigger plan, is gently and sometimes painfully leading you back to that remembrance. Like water carving canyons, not in an instant, but over centuries, the divine is shaping you. Every moment of stillness, every stretch of uncertainty, every ending you didn't expect is part of that slow, sacred carving. It may feel like emptiness, but it is really spaciousness, space being made for what is to come, space being cleared for what your smaller self could not imagine. Let the space remain empty if it must. Do not rush to fill it with substitutes for meaning. Do not grasp at distractions that quiet the ache but numb the soul. Let the space speak to you. Let it echo. Let it teach you what fullness really means, not the kind that comes from having more, but the kind that comes from needing less. For the truth is, you are not here to be filled up by the world. You are here to overflow from within. This plan, then, is not just about direction, it is about depth. It is not leading you toward a destination, but inward, where the answers have always waited in stillness. The world taught you to climb, to achieve, to strive towards significance. But the soul invites you to sink, to listen, to descend into the sacred quiet where your truest voice is not spoken, but known. And when you touch that voice, that still point within you that neither rushes nor fears, something shifts. You no longer beg life to be different. You become different in how you meet life. You no longer need the storm to stop. You simply remember you are not the storm. And in that remembering, the storm loses its power to shake you. You begin to see that every delay was a divine pause. Every no was a redirection toward your greater yes. Every heartbreak was a hidden hand closing a door you didn't know would lead you away from yourself. You weren't being tested, you were being tenderized. And now, with your defenses softened and your heart more open than you ever thought possible, you are finally available to the bigger plan, not just conceptually, but viscerally. You can feel it now, can't you? The way life has not been cruel, but precise. The way your breakdowns led you to deeper ground. The way even your confusion was part of a curriculum only love could design. And now that you are no longer clinging to the map, the compass begins to pulse. A quiet knowing, a subtle pull, a sacred direction that doesn't tell you the destination but assures you the journey is holy. Walk that path. Let it be undefined. Let it be wild. Let it be yours. This is not the time for certainty. It is the time for trust. Not trust in your plans, but in your path. Not trust in what you see, but in what you sense. Not trust in what you understand, but in the presence that understands you fully and has from the very beginning. The bigger plan is not always visible, but it is always at work, in the delays, in the detours, in the door that slammed shut and the one that hasn't opened yet. It is not ignoring you. It is preparing you for a life not built on performance, but on presence. A life not shaped by fear, but by alignment. A life not dictated by the ego's cravings, but by the soul's knowing. And that knowing, it is rising now, like dawn, like truth, like light remembered after a long night. You are not too late. You are not off track. You are not forgotten. You are arriving into the very place the universe intended for you all along. Then let us arrive, not with finality, but with fulfillment. Let us draw breath into the closing arc of this sacred unfolding, not as an end, but as the gentle return home. Because the bigger plan was never about getting somewhere. It was always about remembering where you've always belonged. There is no grand finish in the eyes of the universe. No final bow, no curtain call, no applause required. Only presence. Only the deep, still knowing that you have walked the winding road of your life with courage, with softness, with the sacred ache of awakening echoing in your chest like a holy bell. And now, you stand here not because you forced the path, but because you followed the pull. There were days you questioned if you'd ever arrive, nights you felt forsaken, cast aside, broken by the weight of unanswered prayers. But the prayers were not denied, they were translated. Answered in a language only the soul understands. Delay that shaped strength, loss that opened love, silence that ripened listening. And now, the pieces begin to make sense. Not all of them, not clearly, but enough. Enough to bow your head not in defeat, but in reverence. Enough to see that nothing was wasted, not the pain, not the pause, not the paths that ended without warning. All of it was used. All of it was part of the choreography of becoming. You did not need to be the strongest. You only needed to be willing. Willing to let life soften you where it hurt. Willing to let truth replace illusion. Willing to keep showing up, not polished, not perfect, but open. And you did. You showed up to the sacred work of becoming more real. You let go of maps that no longer fit your spirit. You shed identities that no longer felt like home. You laid down your illusions of control and picked up something far more powerful, surrender. And in that surrender, something ancient was restored. Not given to you, revealed. The strength that endures without needing to harden. The clarity that arrives without needing to shout. The love that pulses through your very being, asking for nothing but to be expressed. This is what the plan was always guiding you toward. Not toward a better version of who you were, but toward the truest, most luminous expression of who you already are. And now you begin to see it. Your life not as a problem to solve, but as a poem unfolding. Each moment, each breath, each heartbreak, and healing a verse in the great hymn of your becoming. There are no wasted stanzas. Even the pauses between the lines are holy. Even the silence is part of the song. Let that song rise now, not in noise, but in resonance. Let your presence become your praise. Let your breath become your offering. Let your life become the cathedral where the divine finds expression in the most human form. Through you. You do not need to preach. You do not need to perform. You only need to be. In being fully, freely, fearlessly, you fulfill the plan. Not by doing something extraordinary, but by allowing the extraordinary to move through you in ordinary ways, in kindness and authenticity. In truth, that doesn't try to convince, but simply radiates. And as you radiate, you begin to see the full circle. You see that the very places you once wished to escape were where your soul was being refined. You see that what you once thought were detours were the most direct paths back to yourself. You see that the universe never abandoned you, it walked with you, as you in every step, every breath, every quiet decision to trust one more time. This is the bigger plan, not written in the stars, but written in your surrender. Not declared by fate, but whispered through faith. Not carved in stone, but unfolding in breath. And now that you see, now that you remember, you can rest. Not in passivity, but in peace. The kind of peace that comes not from answers, but from alignment. The kind that doesn't require certainty, because it stands on truth. The kind that doesn't need proof, because it knows. You know now, you know that you were never waiting for a plan to appear. You were waiting to become who could walk it. And you are, you will. There is nothing more to earn, nothing more to chase, nothing more to become. Only this sacred truth to live. The universe has a bigger plan. And that plan is you.